When looking at a negative exponent and we are given a fraction already, one of the easiest things to do is to flip the fraction before you distribute that exponent to everything inside. And the main reason why that is an easier process to do rather than just going to distributing that exponent right away is sometimes we make mistakes when distributing a negative, and sometimes we just forget that it's a negative. So easiest thing to do is the minute that we see that we have a negative on the outside of a fraction, we're going to go ahead and flip-flop that fraction and then distribute that exponent. So for instance, if I take a look at that number 49, I have 1 over x raised to the negative 2. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my exponent, or I'm sorry, my base. So I'm going to get x over 1, and then that is going to be all raised to the second power. So now I'm going to distribute that exponent of 2 to both the numerator and denominator. So this is going to give me x squared over 1 squared. Well, we can simplify down 1 squared. 1 squared is saying 1 times 1. So in the bottom, I really have a plain old 1. So I have x squared over 1. Now, if you want to simplify it down a little bit more, you could just write this as just x squared, because we do not need to write the dividing by 1 since it is implied. But take a look at number 50. We have x squared over y, and then that's all raised to that negative 5. So again, you are going to go ahead and flip that fraction first. So we get y over x squared, and then that is now raised to a positive 5. And then we're going to distribute that positive 5 to both the numerator and denominator. If we do that, we'll get y to the 5th on top. And then on bottom, we have to do that power to a power rule. So it would end up being 2 times 5. So it would be x to the 10th. So let's take a look at number 51. So again, we have y to the 3rd over 1, and then it's raised to that negative 4. We're going to go ahead and switcheroo that fraction. So I get 1 over y to the 3rd, and then raised to that positive 4, and then we would distribute that positive 4 to both that numerator and denominator. So we would end up getting 1 to the 4th on top over y to the 12th now, because a power to a power is saying 3 times 4. Now remember, we can simplify this down a little bit because y to the 4th is saying 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. And 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is just 1. So my answer here is 1 over y to the 12th. Now let's take a look at number 52. This one looks complicated, but we just take it step by step. So again, first thing that we're going to do, because that exponent is negative, is that we are going to flip my fraction. So my z to the 6th is going to go on top, and then my x to the 9th and y to the 3rd goes on bottom. Now we're going to go ahead and distribute that 1/3 to everybody. And we are going to just multiply them. Now remember, you can multiply this in your calculator, and your calculator can spit out your answer. Let's review how we create a fraction in our calculator. So if I am wanting to do 6 times 1/3 in my calculator, I would do 6 times, and then 1/3 is just a division. So it'd be 1 divided by 3. This right here is saying 6 times 1/3. So if I go ahead and press enter, that's telling me that it's going to be 2. So in my numerator, I'm going to have z squared. Let's again review how to do that with the denominator. So on the bottom, I have my x to the 9th. So I'm going to do 9 times 1/3. So I would enter in 9 times, and then 1/3 is written as a fraction with the division symbol. So it'd be 1 divided by 3. Hit enter. You get a 3. So on bottom, we get x to the 3rd. And if we review it one more time here, I'm going to do my y, which is 3 to the 1/3. So it'd be 3 times, and then 1/3 is a fraction, so it'd be 1 divided by 3, which will end up giving me an exponent of 1. Now I do not have to write that exponent of 1 right there if I do not want to. A simplified version of this would end up being that z squared over x to the third and just y. If you want to write the 1 right there, it's perfectly fine, but you don't have to.